Hello everybody, my name is Ruban, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this Axiom project. It's going to be a Batmobile burnout. We're going to take a look at how to emit smoke, how to do more realistic type of smoke tire burnout effects, and also there's going to be a secret at the end. Axiom also has a Discord page with thousands of members where we discuss and help each other with VFX things and Axiom related topics. So please join us. Yo, 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 yo. All right, so we are in the project. The main point of this tutorial is to show you where things are and in some cases how they work, because we're going to be giving away this HIP file for free and we want you to do some more cool, sick VFX. So here are the sick VFX. We have 3 folders and 4 different effects, I think. So let's see where everything is. So this is the main project. We have the left wheel here and the right wheel of the car here. Here is just to visualize and render the tires, and this is the rivet group for the camera that's connected to the car that you saw in the trailer. So here, like I said, here we have the car with the main smoke sims, and they look like this, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure what the total voxel count was, but yeah, it was going, this is 160 million. You can see the viewport is struggling a bit. I'm not sure. I think in some cases I was going up to 1 billion, but then I realized that you just don't need that many voxels because there was no, in the end, like the difference in at least in this case, the difference between let's say 200 million and 1 billion was not that huge. You wouldn't see it just because how diffused the smoke was in the renders. You know, when you look at car burnout smoke, it's actually very white and it doesn't cast a lot of shadow, and it almost converts into this fog type of smoke. So having 1 billion voxels becoming foggy did not result into anything. All right, so this is the main project, but I don't want to go through this one. What I will do is I will show you how everything works on just the one wheel, and then the second wheel is just exactly the same. All right, so let's go quickly through this. We have our car, and then we isolate just the one wheel. On the left side, we have our collisions. With Axiom, some fields need to be renamed so they work in Axiom. In this case, we have collision and collision vel when creating our collision for the car. The cheat sheet, like I said before, was here, but I will also be linking it in the description where you can find all the documentation. And by the way, you can try Axiom for free. We do have a paid version, but there's a free version that's going to have a bunch of watermarks, but you can just try how fast it is to simulate. Wheel. All right, so the one wheel, we create our collision here. This part is for our collision and collision vel for the wheel. What I do is I spin it. That's kind of the easiest way to get velocities. And then the reason why you want to do it like that is you're going to get the spinning velocity plus the moving velocity from the wheel. I did include another way of doing the velocities here, which you will have to download the project to see how that looks. But in our case, this was good. Then you transform the polygons to VDBs, collision, and then I was converting this to V, and then just renaming V to collision vel for it to work. I'm using the volume rasterize here to get the full bounds, and yeah, the velocity looks kind of like like this, right? So this is the wheel here, but you are kind of getting the full bounce of the velocity. In my case, this was working fine because this was actually advecting the volumes like I wanted it. And you can see that in, you can see it in the trailer, how the wheel, when wheel passed back. So when the car does this, right? When it goes from here to here, so this motion, it really pushed the volumes inside and it kind of created this very cool advection. So in my case, that worked quite well. All right. So we have the collision vel here, and then the actual emitter is created here. The emitter could be created in this way, which is just using a particle method of emitting particles and converting them to VDB, but I just created a static one like this with 2 booleans, isolate the density, renaming it to temperature and fuel because Axiom needs temperature and fuel to work, combining them, and that's pretty much, and then also applying the transformations, and that will create our emitter. That's the main emitter for the wheel. And then I do an influence, which is just another velocity on top, but it allows me to shape the forces and velocities even more. So the influence is this whole part on the sourcing. I scatter stuff, create influence and an influence field from velocity. The velocity looks like this. It's pretty much the same, but it's not using that whole bound, but it's now bound to where the influence is. And that's it. You get your influence velocity here. You combine everything and you get your smoke sims. Now this is a low-res sim, just to illustrate how everything works. If we do another sim on the side, actually let's sim this one. So this is the sim on the right. You can see the OpenGL is it's chugging a bit. Axiom is actually super fast, but Houdini is sometimes pushing it back a bit and it's not allowing it to be at full speed. But if we sim, you're going to be able to see that it's actually quite fast. It's going to be much faster just simming it straight on than to sim and viewing it in the display in the viewport here, because the viewport is actually slowing it down quite a lot. And we are inputting a lot of forces here and a lot of things that Axiom needs to calculate. So it's super fast in this example. And you can, try this one on your own. Another trick that I'm doing here is to flush the RAM on Axiom. You need to enable and disable. Well, you need to disable the simulation. It's going to flush the RAM. What you can do in the file cache here is put this code in. So this will essentially pre and postscript. Prescript will enable simulation set to 1 and postscript will enable simulation set to 0. So you can see the solver is disabled here, but if I start caching, it's going to take a second for all the emitters to initialize. But you see when you start caching, it's still going to cache even though the solver was disabled. And then when you interrupt it, it's going to disable the solver again because it was set to enable and disable it. Awesome. So that's how the smoke is done. On the right, we have the fire. Now, I know a lot of you have asked that how would you do fire and then smoke? Because if you do the smoke sim and if you wanted to make the fire from this, you will get some information here, right? That's how that information would look like if you would want it to try to do fire from your smoke. And it's not the best. Let's do a quick preview. Yeah, that's how the smoke, this is the fire coming from the smoke, right? And you know, you do get something, but it's going to be so difficult to get this to look proper. And you can see we're getting a lot of fireflies. It's going to be very difficult to control your fire and smoke at the same time. It could work. You could totally use this as fire if your simulation is not super close up. But that's how that is going to look like. What I recommend in most cases is to separate your fire and your smoke, and that's what's happening here. It's super simple, very similar in a lot of cases what we just did. Just some of the values are different. For the main part, the values that are different is the much increased disturbance, and the dissipation is much higher. Also, the cooling rate is a bit higher, and I didn't use any of the combustion fields. So what you get is this. This is the simulation that you get. Also, because you know, you're not simulating a lot of smoke, you're just simulating in this controlled area, your voxels, you're going to be able to go much higher in resolution just on the fire area, which is what you ultimately want. So this is the smoke portion. But what we really are looking for is the temperature. And this is a visualizer of how the fire now looks. And in order to get the fire look, you obviously turn on the fire here, but what you have to do is on the source ranges, I just connect them. Connect this one, copy parameter, paste it here, and then add some fire, just some, add a bit of, 0.5 to the right side, and you will start getting these shapes here. The pockets of, the darker pockets, which what you usually get with fire. And then the other element is, this is going to be set to linear, which might work. It still looks very cool. You get the kind of the more sharp shapes of the fire. And if we do a quick preview of this, it's actually going to look pretty decent. And remember, fire is very fast, and it is the disturbance is very, very high. And I will link, I will show, actually, I might just edit the reference on top of this, of the fire that I was using. But let's take a look. You can see it's super fast, very violent. And you can see the difference between this fire, which was quite blobby all over the place, and this fire, which is not blobby and is very controlled and actually looks like fire. But what I usually do is, to create the pockets, you just invert this ramp a bit until you get something that looks, it's a bit slow. Again, that's the OpenGL viewport, not liking what I'm doing. But with this, so we can push it like that, we get even more fiery fire. And this works quite well once you start rendering it. This is where you get the actual fiery shapes. What you could do, what I wasn't doing in this case, is use the actual smoke simulation to advect the fire a bit to get the same direction of the fire. But I didn't need to do that in this case. So that's the difference, right? So it actually looks a bit more like fire with the black areas. And that's it. Then you cache this. I was using this for the geolight, just downsampling it quite a bit. But then you use that, you would use this to render this guy. Cool. So that's the fire. The other thing that I did was the back burners that the Batmobile car has. And I was just looking at the reference from the movie, and you could see that there are two different colors, the blue and the red, coming from the exhaust. So I just did two different sims. One is red, one is blue, and in the render I was just combining them to get that effect. Let's see. So I won't go through all of this. It's pretty boring stuff. Well, it's not boring. It's just most of this is the same to what we've been doing so far. The only interesting thing that I was doing here is with the simulation, I was simulating it upwards because it was easier than simulating it on the actual car, right? So once you copy it to points, and if we visualize our car, simulating it like this would be a bit painful. So what you do is you simulate upwards, and then you transform it to position. I was also looping it just so I didn't need to create the sim that's too long. I just started looping it. This is kind of a cool trick. Once you're transforming your volumes, right? They're going to be here. So I rotated it. Let me get rid of the... So I rotated it from here to here. So it's in the center and rotated 90 degrees. If you view the velocities here, they're not going to be correct. The velocities are not being transformed, which is a bummer. If anybody knows why this is happening, even though I'm transforming everything, let me know. But a hack is to just use that X form that's happening. So if you go under your details, you're gonna get, there's a X form, 4x4 matrix that's happening from this transform. You just grab it, convert it into a matrix 3, and then multiply that again, your velocities by that matrix 3 coming from, essentially doing this and then brute forcing it, and that will transform your velocities into the right position. And then you loop it, and then you do this to make it blue and white, and then on the other side you do it the same, but you do it, you make it red, and then you copy it to points. You just make a single point, you know, using the back burner, remove that, create a point in the center, transform the normal from it just so the orientation is going to be correct, copy to points, bam, you got it. It's going to stick to your car. Very cool. So that's how the back burners are done. And then yeah, this is the full project with the full smoke sim. The smoke in this case, it's going to be a bit slower to simulate, but I really wanted it to, I wanted to get that high quality burnout smoke that you get with actual burnouts. A good reference for this is the Gymkhanas from Can Block. They are burning a lot of tire there. That's what I was looking at for references. And you can see it really, the difficult thing was getting the smoke to not become too plumy. That's what you usually get when you're using, you know, when you're doing smoke sims and you're using combustion, the smoke becomes very plumy, you know, like a smoke from an explosion or like a fire. And in this case, the burnout smoke shouldn't be like that. It should be very diffused. It should almost turn into fog in a way. And that was kind of the mission here, to create a more photorealistic car burnout with Axiom. And I think it looks pretty damn good. So it's going to be up to you to make it better with the project. So what else? Cameras, I will not go into the cameras too much. I was using a Cinemotion plugin. You will unfortunately have to buy this one if you want to use it. I was rendering the fire burnout with Mantra because Solaris doesn't have a good way of using geolights yet. The stage context looks like this. It's going to be a bit messy, but this is where I was doing all the rendering. So let's see, XPU. Another thing maybe to note here, when I was rendering the blue and red flame here, I was using the CPU version of Karma because I needed to use the pyro shader. I was using the color ramp, and the XPU version of Karma does not support the ramp. So for those reasons, I just for that pass, I used the CPU version of Karma. Everything else was XPU. Let's see if I do a render, if this is going to run. Yay. And that's it. Yeah, it's pretty fast for what it's doing. I'm using, where is it? Limits. Well, in this case, the volume limit is at 0, but I was actually using 3 or 4. And that will give you the result you want when you're rendering that really fine smoke. You want it to be quite white. It's going to be slower by quite a lot, but still not the worst, right? And you can see that's how you get that nice quality of the smoke, at least. I don't think I think I'm going to need to clean this up just a bit, but this is the main portion, right? So importing the car, front tires, importing the smoke here. So these are the main 3 elements. Here I'm importing the blue and red flame when I was rendering it, but for now it's disabled. And then merging everything together, you get this. On the left before, I had a lot of assets from Kitbash that we cannot include in the project. Yeah, so this is how the Solaris part looks like. And that's pretty much all the elements in Houdini. And let's do a quick look into how this was composited in Nuke. All right, so we're in the Nuke project. I mean, this looks pretty cool, right? I mean, I'm just saying, but it looks very cool. I was quite happy with how it turned out. We have 3 shots, shot 1, 2, and 3 here. I'm not sure what I should show you guys here. But I guess this is a raw. I guess that's the best way to go about it, is to just show you the process, right? This is how the raw render looked like. And by the way, so I made 2 different simulations, 2 different smoke simulations for this. If we go back to Houdini, to our main, this is the one that we're seeing now. Maybe it's the other way around, but maybe it's this one. I'm not sure anymore, but one sim, so let's see, 200. Yeah, so that's the one. So that's the sim that we are looking at here. The reason I did 2 different simulations is because when the car did the burnout, like the loop here, this simulation was not working well. Well, actually this one could work, But in some cases, maybe I don't have that sim anymore, the velocities were just way too high when, you know, because the car in this area, the car was moving slowly. And when I was adjusting the velocities, it was fine. But when it did the full spin, the velocities were going way too fast, and it was just blowing everything out here. So I just did 2 different sims based on the 2 different shots. Why I'm telling you guys this is, in a lot of cases, the simulations are done on shot-by-shot basis. It's just easier than trying to do everything in one shot and in one simulation. In some cases, if you split it up, it's gonna be a bit easier. So that's what I did in this case. Yeah. So that's that. Oops, it's the wrong one. All right, so this is how this looks. When you split out all the passes and you do some balancing, you get something like this. Still pretty good, you know, a lot better. This was super bright, more cinematic, more dark, right? I guess, okay, let's see what I did. I did a Luma key on just the bright spots, pre-multiply it, so I only get this. Did a glow. Even this alone looks pretty awesome, right? And then I color corrected, made it a bit more desaturated. You can see some of the areas here were clipping. I don't like that, but when you desaturate it, it literally makes the whole difference. Pro tip, when you're doing magic, try desaturating it just a bit sometimes. You're gonna get this nice white that sometimes, if it's too, you see you get the bending from the saturation. Desaturate it, amazing, looks great. Plus it on top, so we're getting something like this. Already looks amazing. I guess I did it one more time with these streaky lens flare type of things to make it a bit more anamorphic. I added a flare from Flare Factory and just keyed it so it's moving with the engine, just to add just a tiny bit. It's not a lot, honestly. I don't want it to be too visible, but it just adds a bit. And then another Flare Factory, I guess, for some reason. Listen, I don't remember everything I do. I get into my flow state, and once I'm in the flow state, things are happening, right? Yeah, why not? Another flare. Color corrected, get a bit more contrast, because this area was looking a bit not the best, I guess. More contrast. And then here I did a key only on the dark areas, and I used that to, oops, I'm back, only to bring out the darker areas and not affect the highlights. So this was too dark, I guess, and this brought the black levels back up just a bit. So just a tiny bit. Here I brought in the 2 passes from the back burner passes. That's how they were looking like. And I used the velocity motion blur at render time instead of using the motion blur here. Glow on top, plus it, maybe a bit too much, but I guess this whole shot became so much more atmospheric that I really wanted it to feel like it's quite foggy. So that's how it looks with the back burners. Quite cool. I added a heat wave to the back burners, so it feels like there's some gas and, you know, just exhaust things happening. And a bit of color corrected, chromatic aberration, just on the edges, just a bit. You know how it is. When you have a render, you want it to make it look worse instead of better. If this was a photograph, you would be like, how do I remove the chromatic aberration? When it's a render, you're like, yeah. We need to make it look worse, right? And I hope this doesn't crash. For some reason, it doesn't work. The defocus at the beginning, just because I love bokeh. So I do this and then kind of rack focus to the car and then add some additional grain on top to make it even more cinematic, right? So that's the final look. So we went from this to this. Hooray! Save everything in comp. That's what I usually say. The other shots, similar thing. That's how this shot looks like. Looks pretty good though. I like how clean this looks, and the smoke looks very nice in my opinion. I was quite happy. Like, I spent way too much time on the smoke, and you see this rolling and rotation. That's happening because of that extended bounding box on the wheel for the velocity that I was showing you. This is what you get. See that rotation? It's looking super nice. When this was happening, I was just playing this on repeat for 5 days straight. Yes, look at that. Beautiful. But I knew that this was, even though it was looking good, it needed to match the other shots a bit more. So same thing, doing some stuff to it, adding the background, motion blurring it. Fun fact, if you do the glow when your image is bright, listen, I'm not a professional compositor, right? I'm just doing things that look good. If it looks good, I try it. If maybe some professional compositor is going to be like, well, that's not how you do it, but that's how I do it. So you make the image a bit too bright, you blur it, you plus it, and then you push it down. You're just going to retain a lot of that glow, but still get the contrast. I guess it's going to give you a more dreamy look. I do have to say, the final color correction was done in DaVinci Resolve, so this is not the final that you're seeing here, but it's close to final. But it's just, I wanted it to be a bit more moody again, so we went from this to this, which is more filmic in my opinion. So yeah, this to this, right? Quite cool. We do lose some of this detail here though, which I'm a bit sad about, but same thing here. We go from that to this. And it's the same treatment that I did before. And then the final grade is done in DaVinci. All right. That's it, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive. It was a bit longer than what I really wanted to record, but when you do a project like this, there's so many elements to it that I guess I just had to explain things, at least where they are, and then you can play around and do whatever you want on your own. Like I said, Axiom was used for all of the simulations here. You can try it for free. It's going to be in the link below. And don't forget to join us on Discord. We are creating a nice little VFX CG community there where everybody's helping each other. So please join us and stay tuned for other Axiom tutorials in the future. All right, everybody. Cheers and goodbye.